When will Bitcoin bounce back is the question of the day. Well, in the short term, it's actually bouncing back as of right now. But the real question is how long to be expected on this correction as we do go look at all of the weekly corrections within the context of an uptrend that we've seen in Bitcoin's history and kind of see where the current one, falls within the overall data. So other than that, I want to look you back to the Krown Crypto channel. Let's just jump right into this one, starting off right over here with a little bit of proof of work. In this case, I've gone through all of the higher term time frame weekly and above corrections in Bitcoin's history and measured out how long did it take from high to low. So from highest price to lowest price is the focus of this particular study. And again, this is only coming in within the context of an uptrend. So it must be essentially a correction within the context of, an upside market. That means that, these moves over here when Bitcoin was in an overall downside market, I'm not going to count those. Anyways, we can see the last few ones right here. Obviously, I won't go through all of them, but I can show you my work over here, which my face is actually covering as of right now. Great, just fucking great. But as you can see, we've gone through all of them. There have been 23 weekly corrective phases in Bitcoin's history. And on average, it has actually taken just over 34 days to go from major high to major low before, general sideways and ups kind of resume. And on top of that, the average percentage of correction we've seen has been just over 35%. So let's put that into context with what we're dealing with as of the current moment. And as you can see, Bitcoin topped out right here, which was basically first week of January. And bottomed out right here, which was kind of the third week of January. And that would be a 14-day correction to the tune of about almost 22%. So putting in the numbers right here, we can see that it's kind of on the lower end for both of these scales. So just putting things into context, it would suggest that the current correction that Bitcoin is experiencing is unlikely to be over. Now, you could say, hey, Krown, especially those, those first couple years of corrective phases, those were kind of overblown. You can see the ones down here, especially, they do kind of stand out as a bit of a different metric. So I can even get rid of these and we can see what the data would be and see if it changes anything significantly. And in this case, the average for days taken from major high to low would be 27.5. And the average percent would be 29.5% correction. So again, even omitting those would still suggest that this is kind of an outlier in terms of what we're dealing with as of right now. Let's put my face back on right over here. So again, we're dealing with 14-day correction rather than 28 basically, and in a almost 22% correction instead of I think it was 29.5% right there. So 22 to 29, that's not that crazy, or it doesn't sound that crazy, but when we put it into actual price action terms, 29% down from the current high would put Bitcoin at 34,500. And in terms of days, well, I think we'd kind of be around, day number, or we're on day number 21 basically, and we're working on 28 at the end of this week. So, that is a little more consistent with what we do kind of expect. But, going back on over here, I would say that if you are putting these, into relative terms, it would still say that this is kind of unlikely in the short term for Bitcoin to be done correcting. Now, in the very, very short term, do I think that Bitcoin can bounce more? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, still with the way that Bitcoin closed for the 5-day and the weekly, there is definitely a possibility for a test somewhere around 45, maybe even $46,000. We see that the median on the 5-day right here for the HPDR bands is coming in just below $45,000. So that means that you could theoretically get a wick above it and still close below. That one's closing tomorrow night, by the way. But still, that would imply that for this particular period, we could still see a little bit of a test upwards, but doesn't really do anything from this perspective, especially as long as Bitcoin is below $45,000 on a closing basis, a 5-day time frame for that. Weekly time frame, as we can see, median is coming in a little bit lower than that, actually, 44,250. But that would still imply that, in the very, very near term here, Bitcoin can try a little bit more upside. The real question is, where do we close these next higher term time frame periods? The 5-day on CME closing again tomorrow, the weekly obviously closing on Friday. So, do we see a little bit of a rally attempt in the interim? Perhaps yes, but still would be leaning towards a greater correction before it's all said and done on this whole party that we've been enjoying for the past I mean, it feels like it was so long ago, but I think just because price action has been so stale and so boring and so sideways that, it's, well, it really hasn't been that long, actually. Really, just about less than a month ago as of this point. Looking at the daily time frame right here for the the HPDR bands, we can see the median's actually creeping back up to 43,750. It's not really too much not really much right there. That is new as well. We did see the HPDR bands range step up, so kind of does favor a short-term test to the upside. But again, short-term test to the upside is kind of meaningless for the overall consolidation, especially as long as Bitcoin's below $45,000 on a higher term time frame closing basis. So we haven't really seen anything new there. I always want to put the higher term time frame in perspective as well with the monthly. Again, remember last month, January did close as a rejection of the median. Top side of not top side, but the median is currently coming in at 46,450. So again, even on the higher term time frame, like a monthly here, it does seem like Bitcoin, again, can put in a little bit of a short-term rally, for these first couple weeks of February. But after that, downside still the most likely thing to be happening. Really, the only way that I kind of turn around to be bullish on this one is one of two things. The first thing and most obvious thing would be obviously, higher term time frame closures above the pivots that we spoke about earlier, especially $45,000 now on a weekly would start to look, okay, pretty good. And the other one would be if Bitcoin just doesn't break down below last month's low, which is that 38,524 tick by like the first week of March. If we see something like that, okay, it's just going to kind of capitulate by boredom, I guess. We do see sideways and up once again resume. But for right now, still pressure down, I do believe. After the short-term try to the upside, how high does Bitcoin get? Like I said, could go anywhere between 44 to 45 and not really do all that much, except for get everyone super bullish, most likely, but who knows. Anyways, I think that, should we leave things off right there? Just nice and short and sweet on this one. I should probably humbly request that if you do find this content valuable or meaningful in any way insightful, please do consider liking and subscribing. Also, just like and subscribe even if you hate it as well. It's great. It gets mailed to you in your YouTube inbox each and every day. I don't know. Should we look at anything else over here? I guess what we could do is we could actually do a quick look at Dixie. We haven't done that in a while. Or actually, oh yes, that's right. I wanted to go over this 5-day time frame as well. So the 5-day for spot price action did close last night as well. So we got a new period right here. A couple things stand out. 5-day time frame is experiencing extreme lows on volatility. So we've seen this now for working on a couple periods, which does imply that it's really going to be pertinent to be looking at the direction of the stochastic oscillator for especially like the next, I would say 1 to 3 periods, as wherever it's essentially pointed is still that likely direction for when volatility expansion does indeed happen. Right now, the 5-day pivot has actually moved down all the way from 47,400 to 45,550. So it's still positioned to the downside, and more than about $2,500 away from current price action. But again, it doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't come back up and test around there to even 44.5, which actually do things kind of. It does look kind of likely to me in the short term. It just doesn't do anything for price action, and it just kind of wastes time over here as volatility continues to operate in this extreme low environment. So to me, that's kind of a setup still for end of month to come. I think that we're just kind of spinning our wheels until then, unless if Bitcoin does close above 45. To me, this is kind of a setup for a bit of a trap right here as it currently stands. Looking at weekly stochastic momentum, again, also positioned to the downside as long as Bitcoin's below 47,450. Bi-weekly time frame, which closes at the end of this week, is also going to be positioned to the downside as long as Bitcoin's below 48,500. So it's going up there. And then 3-week time frame, I think, is also closing at the end of this week. Yeah, it is. And that one's going to be freshly crossing to the downside, assuming that Bitcoin is below 47,300. So we're going to see 5-day, weekly, 2-week, 3-week, and maybe even monthly also turn in the same direction. Monthly is actually much lower, to be fair. Bitcoin would have to close below 39,350 by the end of February. But, just be aware that if Bitcoin does, we're probably in for a multi-month correction and still, looking mid to low 30s if that were to happen. But it's going to take us time, just kind of getting prepared over here. putting everything into order, and I think maybe that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this particular video. As always, I want to wish you the best of best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully tomorrow.